Thank you for staying with us. The world was supposed to end child labor by 2025, but that goal has been missed. Right now, about 160 million children are still working, many in unsafe or harmful jobs. Although there's been progress over the last few decades, things have slowed down a lot in recent years. In places like Sub-Saharan Africa, the number of working children is still rising. Even as other regions like Asia have seen some improvements. One of the big reasons that this is happening is because funding for schools and family support programs has been cut. Without enough help, many families feel they have no choice but to send their kids to work. On the conversation today, I'm joined by Hendrick Makaneta. He's an education activist in Gauteng, South Africa. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Henry.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. Now, you've seen the report, right? Nearly 138 million children remain in child labor, with 54 million in hazardous work. Now, the pace of change since 2020 is 11 times slower as well than what was expected. Why has progress narrowed so sharply in recent years?
Well, quite honestly, there are different issues which affect, a wide range of countries. The biggest challenges being poverty in Sub-Saharan Africa, poverty, unemployment, as well as inequality, which have led to, budget cuts. If you look at the economy that is not growing for most of our countries, budget cuts have really compromised the situation and made it worse to an extent that, children often find themselves with no other choice but to seek work so that they can be able to put bread on the table. And this affects, a lot of countries, particularly in the African continent, where you find that there are dropout rates which are very high. Learners may start together at the first grade, but when they have to exit the system, you find that it's only 50% of these learners who are able to graduate or leave the schooling system on record time. And poverty must be addressed along with inequality and joblessness.
Speaking of poverty being addressed, UNICEF has actually emphasized the need for legal safeguards. Would you say that existing child protection laws, are too weak or poorly enforced?
Well, I cannot say that the laws are weak. If you look at different countries, they do have laws that protect children, especially children under 15 years of age, in line with the development goals of the United Nations. Children who are below 15 years are not expected to work. And now, whereas countries have got strict laws which guarantees that children should not be abused or they should not be taken into the workplace, what is lacking is the enforcement, the enforcement of these laws. Because law enforcement agencies often find it difficult to enforce, because some of these kids work in farms where, there are no regular checks and balances from the side of law enforcement. And the issue of crime already is keeping the police very busy to an extent that they may not always be readily available to deal with some of these, crimes such as letting, children work at an early age. And I think that unless that countries can beef up, their security in terms of police work, perhaps we can see progress at that level. But as we speak now, it is not easy, for employers, employers are able to get away with a matter.
All right, Hendrik, now let's talk about agriculture, that still employs about 70% of child laborers globally. We all know that climate shocks, are only making things worse as well. How should climate adaptation and rural development programs be redesigned to reduce families' reliance on child labor?
Well, I think that right now we'll be having the G20 in South Africa, and I think that countries of the world leaders should unite to address, the issue of climate change, which has affected many communities. I mean, in some of the communities in the different countries, we have seen, changing patterns of rains as well as floods, which have, in some instances, affected, a lot of families. Families find themselves destitute, and as a result, they have to start afresh. Some of them, their houses have been wiped by floods. If you look at areas such as the KwaZulu-Natal in the province of South Africa, we think that world leaders must really move with the necessary speed to ensure that the goals that they've set themselves, the 2030 goals, are achieved without any further delay.
All right, Hendrik. Now, this particular report highlights a gender dynamic, where boys are found more often working, but the girls are heavily involved in unpaid household chores as well. Should our definition of child labor include both? Are there policies that can be designed to tackle both paid work and unpaid care, ensuring that girls are not overlooked as well?
Well, definitely, there's really a need to protect our girls, given the historic imbalances that have been created by colonialism against women of our different countries. But of course, we must also strike a balance because, the work that is done by young girls in their homes often, prepares them for the battles ahead. But of course, we have always said as education activists that, during exams, parents should really be, able to allow, the girl learners to focus on their studies, and by not giving them a lot of house chores, which they have to do. Because it is true that in many households, girls in the main are given a lot of work, be it in the kitchen or elsewhere, than boys. And that actually creates a problem. And in South Africa, we've seen a trend where girl learners are moving quite, nicely in terms of academic performance. In actual fact, they're performing much better than the boys. So, but I think that you are quite right. We need to protect, our women because they've been oppressed in many ways, over the past years of colonialism, with a view to ensuring that girls can take their place, in the affairs of the world.
All right, Hendrik. Now, if laws, because so many people have said that there are laws in place, there are laws in place. If these laws are in place, right, what is failing at the enforcement level? Is it the courts? Is it the labor inspections? Or is it something deeper?
Well, the courts are always there to ensure that justice is served, and the prosecution authority as well ensures that wherever girls are, where their rights are violated, they are able to receive justice. But unfortunately, we have got, girls face a lot more challenges than boys. I mean, if you look at the issues of sexual harassment, for instance, there are some of the girls who end up leaving the school because of teenage pregnancy or because they've been assaulted at school level, either by male teachers and so on. And what we've seen happening is that sometimes even mothers tend to accept bribe from the perpetrators, whereby the case may not see the light of day due to the fact that the mother has accepted a bribe from the perpetrator.
Now, with the failure to meet the 2025 targets, how much faith should the public have in future targets like those, that have been set already for 2030?
Well, I think that, there is really a need for greater collaboration. The biggest challenge that we are facing as countries is the slow pace or the slow growth in relation to our different economies. And I think that if, countries can encourage, foreign direct investment, particularly African states, we can be in a position to move towards the goals that we have set for ourselves, particularly in the African continent. In South Africa, we've got the National Development Plan, whose goals should be realized in 2030, which is 5 years from now. And unless we can grow our economy and fight crime, as well as poverty and inequality, we may continue to face these challenges. We need to really work together, different stakeholders from civil society, along with government, because we do realize that, government alone or governments alone may not be able to resolve all of the issues that are faced by citizens. We also need the support or the intervention by the private sector. The private sector should really come on board to ensure that we eradicate poverty along with inequality in our societies.
Okay. Now, just behind these figures are real kids, real children. Is it possible for us to include the voices of these working children in policy and, in order to understand and hear what they are saying that we really need to do?
That is very important. If you look at our different structures that make laws for our countries, you often don't find, active involvement of children. Of course, in democratic countries like South Africa, before Parliament can enact laws or before Parliament can pass any law, there is public, consultation processes that are undertaken, whereby members of Parliament will go to different communities in order to get inputs from these communities. But what I've seen happening now is that we don't really have a lot of young stars or children who make inputs at that level. But of course, if you look at structures which are there for the protection of the rights of children, structures which deal with children's rights, they're always readily available to make sure that they can look after the general well-being of our kids in terms of policy direction. I mean, in South Africa, we've got the Children's Act, which clearly dictates on what should be done to address all of these issues that are faced by kids. We also have the Children's Court, which is able to, address, any concerns or any challenges that are coming from that sector.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hendrick, for your time and for speaking on this.
Thank you very much indeed.